first of all, maybe we present. So I'm Lara. I'm Lara Monacelli. I'm from Bergamo. I'm the co-founder of actually, I'm an architect. I'm a super normal architect. I have an architectural office with a partner, Valentina. She's not here because she had a baby recently. So, yeah. And Jacopo, well, he's a musician.
Yes.
We are friends since a long time. We are from the same hometown, and we know each other. But since 3-4 years, as we will very fastly show you, we decided to mix our career somehow together. So I don't know if the thing...
Here, but I don't know.
So briefly, as I told you, I'm an architect, but since a few years we are trying to mix sound, architecture, and space somehow. So the presentation of today is mainly organized around how we, and when I say we, is Jacopo and me, we try to interact with people in a different way that is not just making a renovation of a house. So we will not present houses renovation, we will not present public competitions that we do, but we will show public projects and or social, let's say, projects or this radio, podcast, audio documentaries and researches that we are trying to develop. Little parenthesis, brackets. This is the first time that we are actually streaming live radio because we never did it. So thanks again, the Mies, Fundació and LINA and everybody for giving us this chance. Because normally we record, then we post-product, we edit, and then we send it out. So that's why you see us with Zoom and with microphones all over. Don't be afraid, there are like little lentils sticking on these beautiful steel metals, so they will probably have recorded some of your voices or comments. Yeah, so composer, musician, and so on. We would love to start with this project.
There's the album.
Okay, so maybe we listen, it's 1 minute, and then I explain.
No soy autóctona de aquí.
¿De dónde?
De San Feliz de Llobregat, que está al lado de Barcelona.
Soy pequeña, tengo 17 años, estudio y pues en el Rani pues es un sitio pues que quería trabajar, pero fuera de mi pueblo, o sea, mi pueblo pues está cerca.
A mí me gusta mucho la ciudad, ir, estar de fiesta y venir, o irme a tomar unas cervezas, pero no me lleves a centros carcelarios, eso, los centros comerciales, donde va todo el mundo.
Cuatro tiene la cama donde duerme mi morena. Y cuatro tiene la cama donde duerme mi...
So this is just a very short extract of a series of documentaries that we did with Jacopo for a project launched by the Triennale of Lisboa, the Triennale Architectura of Lisboa. It's a nomadic residence, so they are launching the Triennale in October, and the topic of the Triennale of Lisboa is how heavy is a city. So we thought to ask to people who are actually not living in the cities, so we traveled from our hometown, so in the northern of Italy, to Lisbon with a car, moving and stopping only in very remote and, let's say, faraway places, little tiny villages, following the red thread of what is conviviality. So taking the conviviality topic as an excuse to look for places where people meet, to make a survey, to interview who's inhabiting those spaces, and asking them what actually means for them to live far away from the city, what is a city, in which sense for them, what does heaviness means, and so on. So we were like really basically stopping, looking around with our Zoom, just that, and going through radical communities, people who's deciding to build their own living far away from the city. And of course, this was, for an architect, was extremely interesting because we talk about infrastructure, we talk about villages, we talk about abandoned places, we talk about distances, materials, and so on. So it was a different way to approach villages, build things, but just asking and and staying with people in a very
talking with people also.
In a very easy and
interviewing people that are not so used to being interviewed or part of a public discourse about architecture and infrastructure. You know, like if you live in a remote area, most of the time you're not asked about stuff. And that was really interesting for us. And also we collected a lot of sound and we produced those small documentaries, 10 of those. And I produced also like soundscapes with those. And we showed and we are producing right now tape cassettes of the documentaries. And the fanzine documenting our travel and what we, I don't know, thought about it, discovered. Lara drew a lot of stuff.
Sometimes I had to make surveys because
she's an architect. I mean, yeah.
What you heard is, I mean, I think that this project is interesting for this European conference somehow because it really mixes the technical part of our job. So it's choosing where to go and why to go, stopping, observing, redrawing, deciding what to redraw, deciding the scale, and then decide who to talk and what to ask. You know? And then how do you share all of this information that you get? So as Jacopo was mentioning, we decided to use two ways. One is an online archive, so it's our website where we archive everything, and then there is this sort of analogical nice tool that we try to make.
Cassette tapes.
Very slow process. What you just heard, just to say it for who understood, it was a village in Aliste, so San Vitero, Tola, really like West Spain at the border with Portugal. Then there was, we stopped by and interview a girl from Navarra, Arguedas, close to La Bardenas Reales. And then the first was the Anna from the Pyrenees. So it's a Ferrera, it's really a tiny village, completely made out of amazing shiny black stones in the top of Pyrenees. And she's like a witch, and she was a shepherd woman, and now she's cultivating things, and she's like the alcalde of the village somehow. Sorry. So this was just very fast. We try to, once again, how can we share all this? How can we make and contact people from the faraway place to the center of the cities? Because this was the topic of the Triennale. We did this immersive, Jacopo did because of it, this immersive exhibition in a festival in Berlin where we somehow sum up all the 10 hours of, not 10 hours, all the docs, the audio docs and the material that we recorded into 1.5 hours immersive somehow long trip that we did mixing voices, mixing sounds. Many people sang for us and played for us. The women that you heard before, they were incredible in this village which suffers of isolation, abandoned, a lot of death cases and so on. There was this tiny bar where they meet, and there were like 25 people. It was a square inside the square, and they were just singing and playing and drinking chocolate. So this was, I mean, in terms of gathering spaces, it was extremely interesting. So this was how to transmit once again. So you take moments, you find places, and if people want to listen, because also not very often people want to listen. So, maybe we talk about it later.
Yeah, later. A noi caro.
The topic of today that Béatrice and Nicolas mentioned is invisibility, no? So of course, voices somehow are invisible, but we love them. And this year we tried to work with voices, but adding the media of images. So we worked for the same exhibition that Béatrice and Nicolas did, but we took it from another point of view. So since the title is Stop Drawing, we thought, okay, so how can architects describe, how can architects agree, how can architects tell each other spaces without the possibility to use a pencil?
Not even just architects. Also
people like, not architects, people, normal
people.
How
do you describe a space without drawing it? Most of the time you just like move your hands and like you make it, the other person understand what you're talking about. Even how can you build stuff without drawing it, like to communicate how was it before
exactly.
drawing?
How did we build our cities or our villages before, no? When there were no architects, there were no drawings, there were no urban planners, there was nothing. So we thought, okay, how can we see if we can still use our voices, our words, how can we select words, how can we draw with words and with hands and with our body. So it was more like a performance at the end, and we organized a big lunch. We invited friends, not architects actually, I don't know, a teacher, a musician, an anthropologist, my flatmates, like normal people who's not used to talk about architecture, understand, even think where we are, where we live every day, and asking a very simple question, which is, what is your favorite space, and could you describe it only using your hands? We will not shoot your face, we will only shoot your body. And can you make the other person that are having lunch with us understand what you're saying? Yes, not, try. And actually it was fantastic because the lunch lasts like 4 hours, and everybody was really like using the hands of the other to make things. And at the end, what we tried to do was, okay, so now we collected 12 little spaces, from terraces to huts to moving tents to tables to balconies, and how can we then build it? Because actually what architects do is build it. So can you build it? Like, can you use your
body and occupy the space?
And can you measure the space without nothing, or just with the other? So it was about listening, was about collaborating, was about memory, was about personal space, and so on. So I don't know if they're gonna kill me, but can we send the video now instead of at the end? Sorry, Johan. So, it's just a trailer. It lasts 1 minute. It's very short. If you can, otherwise we will show it again. That was not this, but they were making a fence, but they decided to make a fence. So once again, how can we reach? How can we make people interested in what we do? Because sometimes it's very far away from what we actually are working every day in the office. Grazie, Jon, scusa. So Jacopo, I don't know if you want to say something else on No?
No, that's it. Yeah.
Ho sbagliato.
What is it?
The button behind. Okay, great.
He's doing it.
This is actually a proper architectural project. So it's not anymore about media, somehow. It's not about voice, it's not about performances and a real interaction, like one-to-one with somebody, but as a pavilion, is a temporary pavilion like this one, somehow, that we built with Valentina in 2022. We won a prize for that, and was an extension for the Maxi L'Aquila, which is a L'Aquila. Maybe you know it because it suffered for an enormous earthquake in 2013. So basically, the city was quite destroyed. It's in the middle of Apennine, so it's a very hilly landscape full of wind and those very soft mountains and green. And together with Valentina, we built this little pavilion. I wanted to oh yeah, you can see there. This is a pointer, right? Yeah, okay. Well, you see, that is in a piazza, which suffered a lot the effect of the earthquake. As you can see, this is a church which doesn't have a roof anymore. I mean, it has a roof, but it's another type of roof. So I took this project. We decided to talk about that because somehow it's something temporary that was super loved by the citizens. And once again, we wondered why it had to be temporary, no? So the temporary thing, I think, is interesting, at least to us, to talk about it here, because it was super expensive to build it. It was supposed to stay there like 3 months, and at the end stay there 2 months, but even 3 months would have not been enough. And there is a big culture also for us, young architects, no? So make a temporary thing, make a temporary, but then why? I mean, if actually people loves it, and if people use it, and people constantly use it, like in the night, in the day, there was a space for a stage, for events of Maxi, there was a space where you could just swing. The name of the project is Dandalò, which is the name of a swing in dialect from Aquila. It was almost a pergola at noon when the sun is very vertical, because those metallic bars were making a soundy, fresh shadow, somehow making sounds and resonating in this air coming from the mountains. So we wonder what actually. Why, even if a place is so much full of care somehow from who's inhabiting the city, why we have to demolish it? And the reply is because the citizens wanted back their 6 parking places. So, you know, that we always talk like, okay, but how can we make people interested in what we do? How we work a lot on architecture of care and taking care of little things, and what can we do, and who to call, and how can make people get affectionated, like get passionate about little corners, small angles, facades, or any kind of architectural detail, which at the end is our city. But then sometimes it's hard, no? Because when people want back their 6 parking cars. So what can we do? So on one hand, we were very happy because it was a great success. But then on the other hand, we start wondering, okay, so what does it mean to make a temporary architecture? Does it make sense to make a temporary architecture? Maybe not. Or I don't know. Maybe we can discuss about it later. And what else do we have? Sì, c'erano saltato uno. Ah sì, ho stato questo is again, I don't know how much time I have. This is again another project that we do for Mart Museum is a set design, and as you have seen, we kind of always start anytime that we design something from people. So where do people stop? Where do people pass by? What do they need? Shadow, light, playground, whatever. And even in this case, we have been called by a curator, Dennis Isaia, pardon, of Mart Museum, is in Trento. I don't know if you have been. The building is extremely big. It's done by Mario Botta. It has an amazing glazed dome on the very top and a covered square underneath. And the exhibition space was for a collector who brought the Arte Povera in Italy in the 60s. It was from Turin, and he had an amazing collection of pieces, from Chinese horses to Indian, come si dice, little paintings. And but we were shocked because we say, okay, how can we work on 5,000 wide square meters with walls of 5 meters? People are gonna get like I don't know, foot ache or anything like that, or they just get bored. So we thought to play with color, very cheap, very light, and somehow to really make the public becoming the art somehow, and vice versa. So this is just an extract of an enormous exhibition where here, instead of those supports, there were 2 walls. So the curators say, we can just put the faces and the bodies leaning to the walls. We say, no, can we not just demolish the walls so that people passing in between the series of bodies becomes the sculpture itself. So it's sort of game of faces, of legs, of arms, and so on. So in a continuous exchange of what is there, who is passing, and so on. So once again, trying to go toward people and not asking to people to understand what we are actually doing. And this was a noi caro. this very, very fast. We have been called for an art exhibition, but actually we don't do it normally because we work as architects. So for 2024 Italian capital of architecture in Pesaro, so always in very remote islands, remote places, we kind of like that. And we're not that used to work in cities, finally. And we didn't work with sound, but we thought about to make a small installation in a square with drawings to really express and to tell, as you were doing before during your presentation, to tell people and visitors not really an object. There were many objects around, like horns or things, but really, how can you enter the city? How can you, a citizen from Pesaro, realize where you are, understand where you are, find yourself comfortable, and then play with these things. This object was done out of paper, so super cheap, super light, foldable chow. We could put it in a baggage and go there. And there were our notes, there were our drawings, there were axonometries. This thing could move, and was a scenography to play, offered to citizens to play with this little theater thing that you could use for hang or project or moving around, rotating, and so on. Then I don't tell you the process before, but just to say that I don't know. There is a sort of intention of playfulness, no, of leaving people free to decide what they want to do. So they want to stay behind, they want to play in the exhibition, they have to be free to move wherever they like. The pavilion in L'Aquila as well, you want to sit, you want to jump, you want to swing, you want to do whatever. So we kind of like this. And because we think that only through letting people feel comfortable, then we can have more care about spaces that we share, no? Basta, this was one of the first projects Valentina and me we did, and it's okay. I don't know how much time we have, but maybe what would be nicer, I don't know, Miriam, but so you were probably wondering, because we showed 3 projects before, we're also collaborating with Jacopo, and now I showed you 3 images, 3 projects which are actually architectural projects. So maybe it would be fun to say why and when and for which reasons we met. And the reason is, once again, an architect.
Yes, Magistretti.
Magistretti. Probably you know, Vico Magistretti is an architect from Milan, as an amazing architect. And 3 years ago, the foundation launched a competition to make an exhibition inside the Vico Magistretti Foundation spaces. So I started studying Vico Magistretti, and then I discovered that his office was right close to the Conservatorio.
Where he studied.
Yeah. And that he used to leave to do 2 things when he was drawing. He drew a lot by hand. He used to leave the window open to let all the music coming and flowing into the space. It's a tiny office, like 3-4 rooms. And then he was constantly listening to radio. So he said, wow, then maybe could be interesting. How can we actually add a value of the proposal using sound? And then
yes,
called Jacopo, and we did this proposals, which I don't know if I have, but you can find it on internet. And yeah, so we shaped the 3 or 4 rooms using sound, using the voice of Magistretti, using the voice of this series of furnitures that probably you know is called Broomstick. If you don't know, go and check, because it's fantastic. It was a very young Vico Magistretti in the 30s, where he didn't have that, he was moving a lot, and so he had to carry very light furnitures. Really, Broomstick is a manico di scopa, so it's really a piece of wood with a super easy joint, where you could do table, hanging board things, library, and so on. And so we recorded the sound of those joints, of those material that he used to. So we sort of created the sound environment.
A soundscape
of the spaces. And then his voice, then he used a lot fabric. So in another room there was the sound of those sheets, very colorful sheets that he uses for amazing sofas that he drew with Campeggi, which is a great factory. And so everything was somehow born there. Then we collaborate for homemade podcasts, always interviewing people, and yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, like, as a musician, and I work in the field of electronic music mostly, and sound installation, and I'm always dealing with space, like lots, like multi-channel sound installation. But even when I'm playing in clubs, like techno and whatever stuff I play, like if you have a good sound system, I mean, for literally when I step in a place, I'm so used to do this. This thing as soon as I step inside. And also I was discussing with Brian before, because like the acoustic inside here, the space is beautiful, but the acoustic must be whoa. As soon as I stepped inside, because there's glass, there's like this marble, it's really like something, it's so related, the space with sound. It's really so interconnected, and it's so interesting to describe a space, describing the way the space sounds. So the way the space reflects the sound, the way it projects the sound, the way it's possible to make it look. I mean, hearing a space, you can, as soon as you hear it, you can say, "Oh, this space is big. This space is small. What's the material of the walls? What is the placement of the people who's talking in the space?" So it's so interesting to understand this type of stuff. And also, like, sound is influencing a lot the way we live. I mean, we're inside this, but we can hear the street from outside. So actually, I have microphones around here, but if someone was listening to the radio, could instantly say, okay, you are in a city. And maybe you're close to the street, but quite some people pass through the street. So you can, as soon as this, you can imagine where's the thing. And also we have like this kind of weird perception, like related to like us being humans. So we hear like bass frequency, we know that it's a big object moving. We hear like, because it's like 360 degrees. So it's kind of super interesting to mix this kind of thing. And also working in remote areas, how the sound changes. You can really have this kind of, I don't know, microscope. Because you can focus on super small sound that we lose completely inside this city environment. So that's also another topic. I'm a musician, I lived in a lot of cities, and that's a big topic for me. I cannot rehearse at home. I cannot play music. There's this kind of topic, like how my presence influences the presence of the other people, because I'm doing music. I'm loud, basically. I'm always loud. I'm always shouting because because I do so much music. Yeah, but that's the interesting part. Is I guess the topics are really related. So
maybe the last thing, because for us I think it's important. You mentioned imagine, no? The word imagine, and the reason why we decided to work with the media of the radio, so the voices, is because it allows. It's somehow much more free and much more light, even if Béatrice and Nicolas told us that it's not so light because we anyway need a lot of devices. But it's very democratic, it can go everywhere, and first allows people to imagine. So we don't give anybody like, bam, this is an image, this is something. Just listen if you want, and then in your mind this will become something else. And we really like the possibility to imagine that somehow we felt a little bit
yeah, similar to reading a book, no? When you imagine like a room described by someone.
This is it. That's why we decided to work with the sound.
Okay.
And we think that this media is interesting. Basta. Thank you.
Basta.
Thank you very much, Lara and Jacopo. I would like to also ask Béatrice and Nicolas to join us here on the stand. And we want to keep this kind of easygoing as we've been doing it. So please feel free to participate and to ask questions, to help us also in moderating or to having these conversations so that we can obviously learn more from your experiences, what you've been already sharing with us. Your experience, for example, with the sound was very kind of nice to hear, because we've had many different kind of people coming here and participating in different programs. We have Sonar Mies, no? The Sonar Festival takes place every year, next door. Well, next year it's leaving, but still, there's always one of the events with some of their DJs or some of their performers happens over here in the pavilion in very different ways. So the way that sound reflects in the pavilion is always kind of pretty exciting for the people that come, because as you were saying, I've seen many of them
clapping.
clapping, and not only clapping here, but there, behind, over there, and elsewhere, everywhere, and they say, wow, the reverberation, the sound is absolutely different in each place. No, it changes a lot. So it's not easy for the technicians, as you were saying, but sometimes it also gives a lot of opportunities for the performers, let's say it like that. We also have classic music. Sometimes the piano is here or on the other side. Same thing kind of happens there. So the experiences that you are all creating kind of also have to do with how you imagine them, how you want them to sound, to show. But as you were also saying, Lara, how people imagine, you know, by themselves how these happen. So maybe I wanted to start with you, Lara, with one thing, which has to do, as you have your architectural office. In architecture, it's already been many years that we love to say that everything is architecture, no? So movement, we speak about space, so there is a connection with architecture when we speak about nearly any kind of topic. But it's interesting, you already said so a little bit in the presentation, but how your learnings with your partner at the studio are taken from these experiences with the people. Know that, for example, you interview or you go to these small villages, but then you have a competition for, I don't know, a building or something. And how do the two connect? No, from this scale of the more performative or communicative to the scale of designing something.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the question. I will try to reply. Maybe, well, I would say very honestly, from how we do the survey. Like, this is coming from how we approach any kind of project, especially architectural one. So with Vale, we always started anytime, going there, but not only observing and taking measures, but talking with people, to people, staying there long time, even too long, and really moving around what we have to work on. Doesn't matter if it's an empty plot, doesn't matter if it's a competition for a school in Sicily. So, I mean, we go there and we talk with people. What would you need? What would you expect? We stay there, we observe how people move. There is a guy running in the shadow, so maybe there people run, so maybe the sun is this season and that season, okay? So I think that is our approach toward things. We are not like people starting from a joint, because I want to develop this joint incredible for this project, we absolutely used to need to use wood. No, we respect it, but it's not our way. So we go and we observe, and very humbly we ask people what do they need, because it's a service. So we do a service, and that's it. So if I replied, maybe it's thanks to this way of designing somehow that we started being very much passionate about stories that people started telling us, no? So I said, well, we should keep all of this, no? We want to know more. How many things can we learn? And how much value the building, when it's built, can get if we are able to tell how people use it. I mean, you for sure, you know, we all know. Now maybe a little less, but like architectural books, there is no people inside in the images. Yesterday, Elena, she was mentioning about these people moving in and out, and this is fantastic, but this is something that is coming, but was not like that. I work in university, and my professor always say, no, ask students to put people inside. No, the Grafton use a lot of people, but this was not like that. So I think that we are also somehow daughters of this this very anthropological, ethnological way of thinking architecture.
So, Lara and Jacopo, you were interviewing people yesterday and today and so on, but sometimes you also have other people interviewing you. I mean, for example, we were speaking the other day, no, Nicolas and Béatrice, how do you share your research, which has been involving so many people, and there are things which are technical and not that easy sometimes to explain, to share, and so on. How do if you have been interviewed, for example, by journalists or people who are interested, or even by answering questions, how do you kind of share your knowledge to a general dissemination journalist in comparison to when you're speaking to people that know about the technology or specificities of your work? And how does that change? Do you change your narrative?
Good question. Yes, our work is related a lot to also technical elements, hardware and software communication, because it is a topic, but it also uses some elements, even if could be a part of low-tech. It's true we don't use the same approach regarding who we talk with, but I would say that maybe in general, for example, when we put the photography regarding the project Passifolia with the light, vertical light, and the photography regarding going in the forests to having some sensation in the forest, we often use metaphors when we talk around something, because as a part of it is, I don't know, maybe we can talk about a project which we didn't exist at the beginning for funding or with the journalists, so we had to let them imagine. I imagine it's the same for a building, what could be possible in that with different paths inside it. So for us, I think metaphor is a good approach to let them visualize and feel what it could be at the end. And after that, we can go in detail, but I think the principal point is to let them understand what's the main idea behind that. And the idea related also to feeling with the atmosphere. Because when we talk about, I don't know, technology or nature, we can, like, for example, as in cinema, have different point of view. If you are Hitchcock or if you are Godard, even if you have to tell the same story, you won't have the same approach to it with the same tonality. And that's why it also refers with people like Perec or Queneau, how to tell a story with different approach. And for us also, it's important to think about this mood. We would like, or we feel interested to put the audience in, even if sometimes it's not the objective. Many visitors or journalists or people we talk with are talking about something which let you feel very zen, like quiet and in a very calm mood and atmosphere. And yes, for us also it's interesting not to be too Manichaean regarding the subject also we are talking about, because our world is a little bit, could be too Manichaean, so that's why.
It's interesting because this way in which we share, we communicate, we speak to the different people, no, that from different fields that you all collaborate with, is something which becomes very, very important in your work. We've seen it clearly. And for example, in your case, once again, you've said that you work with people that are specialized in certain technologies, no? But when do you think, or is it at what point that you consider that you're interested in collaborating with an architect in one of your works? Or is your kind of know-how acquired so far about space, about an empty church like we saw, or so on, kind of already enough, your intuition or so on, to work with that space? Or do you see kind of that need to work with somebody that has this kind of knowledge, the specific knowledge called architecture? Or does it ever happen?
I said it's related to a context, the piece we develop and exhibit. We said about dialogue with the space, but it could be also itinerant. So we also have, in general, we develop projects that could be exhibited in different kind of spaces. And as it's not, it could looks like monumental, even if it's, because maybe it's dark and you have lights and can give you, as we explained, an idea on infinite space. But it's a scale we still, I think, understand and we can still imagine. But as you saw, it's about emptiness a lot. So in fact, we don't have to, we build some hardware and electronics, but we don't have to build some real spaces. That's why, for the moment, we managed to this kind of scale in projects. But it's true if we wanted to think maybe on a bigger scale, or I would say maybe a space which could be more complicated with more circulations, or just to have a collaboration to do some research on project we don't know for the moment. It could really make sense, and also I would say related to doing something that will stay in time, as I mentioned, intervention, light intervention on buildings. As soon as it will stay for, I don't know, decades as a building, even if as artists and designers, we have a responsibility and ethics about what we are saying. It's true that there is a little bit part of something which is ephemeral, because it's also related to technology, and there is also the idea of obsolescence, which is interesting, related to environment, etc. But it's true in collaboration with architects, there is also this idea of creating something, even if it could be ephemeral sometimes, but it will stay. So your responsibility is a little bit more upgraded. And in that sense, for us, I think it would really make sense to collaborate, to do something that could make sense.
Yeah, I think that Lara was raising up that topic, about temporality. This building where we are right now, this construction was experimental. They were testing with materials, with structure, with the different, even with also the natural parts of it. And therefore, the idea was to dismantle it after 8 months. But then some other people came many years afterwards and considered that this was worth building and keeping it forever. So even if the technology in the construction, a certain technology had changed, reinforced concrete in the reconstruction and so on. So maybe we can, as you were also opening that debate before, with Jacopo, maybe also speak about the difference, or the importance of these temporal projects, these research, but applied into a certain space or so on, applied research, let's say, and works that afterwards stay over time, and how important these might be also at the beginning of our careers, because many of us started with exhibitions or small kind of temporary pavilions or projects.
I don't know if I can answer to this question, because
it's a discussion. There's no answer, and we open it up as well.
Okay. No, I would like to know what you think about. Because we somehow said it a little bit. So of course we think that all those small pavilions, the topic of ephemeral architecture is great because it allows young architects to experiment and so on. But then I'm wondering, but if it's good, why cannot just stay? So can we not just maybe change something in the writing of the competition itself, saying, if it is good, if it is appreciated, then it might stay. Okay, I don't know. But then in terms of sustainability, it would be much better because you don't have to trash. This thing that we say that, then you reuse the material. So, come on, it's not always so true, unfortunately. So no, I'm curious to hear what you think about it also.
Van der Rohe pavilion that was built to be temporary, and he came back. No, so it's a very great example of something that was so good that people and architects asked to have it back again. But it's true. Sometimes you see some temporary installations, some temporary solutions that are so good that you feel you need it fixed there. So
yeah, but for example, we've had these interventions in the pavilion that obviously, for example, one of them was the 8 columns that were rebuilt here in front. That stood there for around 4 to 5 months, and then I think was not Dietrich Neumann but Fritz Neumeyer. He was really saying these have to stay here, this has to stay forever, but it had been thought, like this pavilion originally, to be temporary. So there were certain kind of aspects of that construction that meant for it to be temporary. Structural ones, but also in terms of learning. So in many cases, for example, in your case, you have brought ombre blanche to different places. So it's not that you create that and then it dies, but that you kind of adapt it and you follow up with that research to kind of improve certain aspects, or not only improve, but learn from certain things that or certain challenges that you find in a place where the conditions are different. So I think that this temporality of certain aspects of our life, this kind of non-permanence, also allows us to then kind of at a certain moment have the knowledge so as to transfer. And that's why I was asking about this connection also with competitions or with works of architecture that can be included there. Maybe not exactly like that, like a piece of art we could consider temporal, but as a learning.
Yeah. As an input to think differently,
exactly.
To think wider.
On taking decisions on certain aspects of it. Because I guess that this is something that will continue having a life as well. Right? Because if not, we go to archives, and that's a huge kind of debate that we will not start today about how to collect art and architecture as well. So do you have in mind a little bit the technology or so on, which are the next steps towards where this might go?
I don't know where it will go, but yeah, there is definitely an iterative experiment. Right. Experimental. Iterative process, yeah. And it's also like the fact that it's temporary, it also lowered the pressure, the pressure, we wouldn't build it the same way if it would last for a few months. And this is, we like to, at least I do like to rethink at every time, to try to enhance, to make it better, to make it also technically easier to install and to maintain. We add securities to check the temperature of the pump, but very technical stuff, but also sometimes we also see how people interact with it, stuff we couldn't guess because it didn't exist before. So we try to have a design methodology, like you mentioned, to see the place, to see how people live there. But then when it's there, it changes everything. So if it's not permanent, then we can the next time take into account what we saw and adjust it.
Yeah, and it also almost there is a kind of joke regarding that artists working with technology, because with a building you can do several versions, or even if it's ephemeral you could, but for classical building you don't have several versions of a building. You can have this on your files when you 3D draw your building, but for our part we have several versions regarding the same artwork. And sometimes the question is, when will it end? Because we can always improve and try to adapt and adjust. So it's a process, never-ending process, I would say. And it's true that it's also evolving with each time we show it. We have some feedbacks and we take it into account. So yeah, it's a kind of never-ending process. After that, we just put the level of what we want to improve inside that, because we can never yeah, we can continue forever. And what you said, I think, is interesting, the experimental approach behind this, because as we often describe our practice, like in medicine, we are not specialists at all, but we are more like generalists. So we know how things work in general. But if it's in a specific topic, that's why we do collaborations, because we know the principles, so the main principles, for example, in code to control a ground mechanical grand piano or a pump. But after that, we need to do inside in detail, and that's why we do collaborations, because we need to go to the other steps. But for us, it's interesting to stay open-minded, because it lets us imagine what could be done, even if, as you mentioned before, sometimes it's also nice to doesn't have an idea at all if it is possible or not to do something, because at the beginning we didn't do it. For example, at the beginning we are thinking the fact that it will be easy to control the pump. We had some discussion with the technical guy saying, no worries, you can turn it on and off. And when it was real, we bought it, and we read lots of technical documentation, and we would say like, no, in fact, it's not possible. And so it lets you try some approaches that you maybe will never try in other case. Yeah.
So I don't know if you might have questions between yourselves, and we also open it to the audience. But Lara?
May I say
Sure,
sorry, just one thing. I was thinking again to the question of the power of those temporary projects, all spread all over the city, all over even Italy. And actually, before it seems that we said that we don't like, but we really like, because somehow they are to us, I guess, they are a way of reoccupying spaces, like recolonizing corners. So it's somehow, as the radio, no, that is colonizing moments of air, or you are showing the colonization, not wanted colonization somehow. No? So it's a very powerful way to occupy parts of the city, which at least in Italy it seems always, and to think about architecture, and to think about construction, and to think about staying together, and public spaces and public gathering in spaces and in cities that, at least Milan, you don't have so many spaces. It's here to stay together and to be together. So maybe to me this is the power of temporary proposals. So really as a dispositivo, as an input, as a but almost a little guerrilla somehow, no? It's a very...
That's why probably they need to go on changing, because we need people to also kind of continue interacting with the city, no? And kind of interacting with things that change. It's not that they have to change at a huge speed, but it's true that when we find new things that are happening in our public spaces, or here in this building, or so on, then we kind of also dialogue with them differently, no? And this is the conversation that we end up having with everybody around in whatever city, no, whatever citizen or so on. So, do we have any questions from an audience that we know it's always difficult to ask, but we're always happy to hear from, to see if there are any aspects of what Jacopo, for example, or Lara have presented, or what you have seen before? No?
I have a question. No, I think that it's one reason also because we invited you. No, we thought that from different point of view, it was very interesting to see how the addition of art, sound art, installation helped in a way to explain architecture in a way. I mean, we are here, no, and the framework of architecture in the media is to try to find out new way to help architecture be understood, no, by the general public. And in a way, I think that architecture is so complex. We were thinking about so many things that an architect think to create a building, the materials, the space, the feeling, how the people is living there, how is the circulation around the space. And in some way, I think art, through technology, in both your examples, really could help people focus on some aspects of the space, some aspects of the process, also the creativity process that create this environment, this built environment. Do you think it could be a bit the key? Because we are here also to try to discover new ways to help people understand the importance of a place. I don't know now, today, for example, to see this cloud in the pond, maybe a lot of people were not fixing anymore, no? That we have a pond in the pavilion, that there are the flowers now. So it's a way to of course, there are other aspects, no, in your installation, but in some way it's focus the attention through different languages.
Yes, it would say that it changed the point of view on the same subject or on the same context. And it's true also when you do, I think it's the same in project you could develop. You focus, in fact, when we do the project in a dark room with the light, there are also stuff around like technical ceiling or other lights or that are off, different elements in the room. But in a way, by manipulating it, we try to focus on a subject we found interesting to talk on. And by doing that, and that's why also we talk about the idea of emptiness. It could be emptiness related to the space, but it could be also emptiness maybe related to the time, to be able to record something and to feel it, but not in real time, or maybe not in real time, and it also changed the perception of the same experience you could have. Maybe if I, in a few days, listen what you record, I will have a new feeling on this event. And yes, for me, that's the important approach regarding also technology. They have aspects that are not so good, but aspect that could be interesting is to, and when I say technology, it could be really walls, or it could be something more light or elements like that, electronics. But you can create a condition of a situation, a kind of platform for interaction, and you can try to put the light on something, and yeah, maybe let people enjoy or not the stuff you want to put in light, and maybe with a little bit of, I don't know, but it's not related to humility, but we had this discussion regarding how you feel when you go inside a museum, contemporary art, or maybe here, because it's beautiful and it could be impressive, and you could maybe feel not really at ease because it's, I don't know, it could be not your references, and you don't know how to act, and it's also related to the codes in the world you evaluate in. For example, we are not architects, so we don't have, I don't know, all the codes and all the, yeah, we don't master all the struts you evolve in. And by doing that, maybe it could be more simple and more convivial. There is more conviviality in doing that because it looks like more simple to take part because you go in for the same topic. Well, yeah, and share about that.
Yeah, it reminds me about the concept of hacking. Like to have temporary intervention in some space, you hack the space somehow, and so you kind of orientate and hack the behavior of the people. And yeah, it's a broad vision of hacking, but I think it comes back to this hacking concept and philosophy.
I think it's interesting about how you hack the physical space, but also how do you do that in the digital sphere? So are you using social media? Because one of the aims of all this is also to kind of create awareness, no, on a series of topics. So how do you use, in your case, for example, this, how will it be shared on some kind of digital platform, social media, or so on, to reach more people?
Yeah, we are currently streaming everything. So we set up a web radio. We have a website where we archive all our material. And at first we wanted to make a radio. So we are working towards that. So it's going to be like a radio with an archive going on and some live streaming from like different places. For example, Lara is going like for 2 weeks for building a thing on top of a mountain. She's going to stream. I'm going for a residency this summer. And we were thinking about having like this fixed platform that can stream from everywhere, but like super light solution, like Raspberry Pi with Icecast and I don't know, technical things, but that's kind of easy actually, and
but it's fragile because connected with the radio, and maybe also replying to your question.
Yeah, using FM would be illegal. So I thought about it, but that would be illegal. I mean, I'm not against doing illegal stuff. I mean. Yeah, you cut it, Benna. Really, I'm not against occupying even the radio space, but now we are doing it in the digital realm, so we are using web radio. It's fragile because we need Wi-Fi for doing it, so we need some kind of internet connection. And even with social media, you need internet connection. You need like this type of and most of the time it's private. So you need to pay for the service, so it's not so accessible. So it's kind of difficult for to use it everywhere, and there are spaces where you cannot reach it. Using analog media would be easier, like for using FM radio, but the space which FM radio is using is privatized also. So we are always talking about like private space and public space, even when we are talking about digital realm. We decided to use a website because we thought about, I mean, that's a topic also for me. I'm working as a musician. I have to promote myself and using social media a lot. But when I'm using social media, I don't know, I'm kind of torn apart because like you're in a private space, it's difficult to really communicate. You're always the same thing. Maybe you're not communicating yourself, you're communicating the platform itself. It's like you're regenerating the platform all the time. So the thing is, for me, it would be to find a way of democratizing technology, to making it possible for everyone to communicate, making it lighter, hacking stuff, making it lighter and making it possible to move around, to make it temporary, and so not be so linked to this kind of technical stuff you have to use a lot. But yes, I think you have to use social media. You have to.
3 weeks ago, yes, I agree, Jacopo. 3 weeks ago, you in Spain and Portugal, there was this shutdown, okay?
Yes.
So, like, that thing, which actually, it's fun because it happened the same like in the 90s in Italy, and all the electricity shut down because there was one tree that just fell, and there was nothing. So the only thing that was working was the radio. And when it happened here in Spain and in Portugal, I was listening to the radio, and they were saying, it's nice because a lot of people just went down, took out the chairs, and took back from the wardrobes the old FM radio. So, okay, this is, we know, but then it's interesting because you were mentioning conviviality. We are interested in conviviality not because it's a nice book by Ivan Illich, because it's a nice topic, but because it makes spaces, and it makes gathering common spaces that we're really interested in. And this moment of cutting technology, getting back to a mega analogic thing, forced people to go down to the street and rebuild the space which somehow was forgotten and which is a temporary space. So I think it's very nice.
Regaining the space also.
So yeah, technology. I don't know. Maybe yes. Maybe it's not the solution.
Maybe we have many solutions.
Maybe we have many solutions.
To use.
Yes.
No. Yeah, we live the blackout in a very physical way. So.
Yep. So no questions? I'm sure there will appear afterwards when we're all around. Oh, there's one question there.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. My English is not too good, so I'm going to try. I think that both of your works are very interesting, and now that you mentioned the blackout, I think that for me the real value in what you do is found the way to do those things, to have the importance of disconnect of technology, of the social media, but without the blackout. Because I really love your project about the launch, with how to explain your favorite space with your voice, with your hands. And in the pictures, no one was using the phones.
No.
Exactly. Then I think that the magic in all of that is even create even more spaces like that to share, to build, to know the people around you, but not with electricity and with technology, but not all the time. And thank you.
Yes, thank you for the comments. No, absolutely. At the end was a way of nobody used the telephone, not at all. No, we were just building together somehow. But
one of the comments they told us, like the participants of this lunch, they said, "Oh, it was amazing listening to each other." It's like like for like an afternoon.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh wow, what an amazing experience!" Like people listening to you and not talking, and like asking you stuff what you were talking about. And so people right now is surprised about this because we are not used to communicating in such a normal, humane way.
Sometimes it's very it's easy to communicate, but you just need to
became philosophical.
Stay close to each other, no? And somehow without filters. What we did at that lunch was no filters. I mean, there was him around with a microphone, with a camera,
with microphones and cameras,
we didn't even realize them. That's why. And we did this. Probably the fact that we didn't show the faces just allow people to stay super relaxed. So once again, the power and also I don't know if it's the power of things that you don't see, that are temporary, that are invisible, but at the same time they are mega there, no? Because you hear them, you feel them, you can shape them as you like, how you like. Thank you.
So I think it's also lunchtime now, so we're going to think about how we're going to have lunch with our colleagues today. So thank you very much, Nicolas and Beatrice, Lara and Jacopo, and all of you. And we continue this afternoon with more roundtables. Thank you. That's it.